Less than 1% of Americans plan on retiring before they turn 50 years old. But I'm on track to reach financial freedom before I turn 30 years old, another 20 years before that. So how am I on track to retire faster than 99% of people? Well, there are three components to building wealth. Make as much as possible, spend as little as possible, and invest the difference. So in this video, I'm going through each of these three factors to show you exactly how I plan to retire in my 20s, and it'll hopefully help you do the exact same thing. Part 1. What I earn. When I graduated college, I immediately began making $100,000 per year. I have even made a video about how I did that, which maybe you've seen. $100,000 is a lot of money, and it absolutely makes it easier to reach financial freedom quickly. But I think a lot of people overestimate how important a high income is. In fact, how much money you earn might be the least important factor that I talk about, but that will become clear later. No matter what, higher earnings is better. But I don't get to keep all of that money. I have many expenses, and by far my largest is taxes. Every paycheck, I pay about $850 in taxes, which is about 20% of my income. And I'd be paying even more than that if I wasn't maxing out my 401k, which reduces my taxable income by about $20,000 per year. But even after maxing out my retirement accounts and paying taxes, I still have about $58,250 that comes into my bank account every year. And once you add on my retirement contributions and the match that I get from my company, I'm earning about $94,000 per year. Of course, about $35,000 of that is pre-tax income, so it's not quite as good as it sounds. But either way, that's a lot of money. So even without any pay raises, I'm on track to earn about $750,000 between the time I started my career and the time I turned 30. About $465,000 of that will be earnings in my bank account, while the remaining $285,000 will be in my retirement accounts. And look, that's obviously a lot of money, but if you add up anybody's income over a long period of time, it will be a lot of money. And it also takes a lot of money to retire. I'll talk about how I'm calculating how much money I need to retire in a little bit, but I can say now that $750,000 is not enough for most people to retire. So the real reason that I'm on track to retire at 30 years old isn't because of how much money I make. It's because of how little of that money I spend. Part 2. What I save. When I graduated college, I immediately made one of the worst financial decisions that you can possibly make. What I mean by that is I moved to one of the most expensive cities in the world. Average home prices are over $1.2 million, and rent can easily be over $2,000 a month. The average cost of living for a single adult is $57,000 a year, which is about double the national average. But despite all of that, I'm still living on about $20,000 per year. I don't own a car, and I commute everywhere on my bicycle. I never eat out, I don't buy things I don't need, and maybe most importantly, I live with 3 roommates to save a ton of money on rent. And living frugally is absolutely essential to my plan for retiring early for 2 reasons. One, it obviously means that I get to save more money. Remember, after taxes and retirement contributions, I take home about $58,000 per year. And the average cost of living for a single adult, which I am, is $57,000 where I live. If I spend that much money, my only savings would be in my retirement accounts. That's still a sizable chunk of money, but there is no way that I'd be able to retire at 30. But by living on around $20,000 a year, I get to save $74,000 per year, half of which goes to my bank account and half of which is in retirement accounts. But this isn't even the most important impact of living frugally. The real reason that frugality is so important is it means I need way less money to retire. If someone spends $100,000 per year, they probably need millions of dollars to retire. But since I spend so much less, I should only need a fraction of that. So by living frugally, I'm saving tens of thousands of dollars, and I need about $1 million less to retire than if I spent money like the normal person. But even after saving all of this money, I still only expect to have saved around $550,000 by the time I turn 30. And don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money for a 30-year-old to have. But remember, about half of that would be stuck in retirement accounts, and if all I did with my money is leave it in my bank account, it would almost surely run out if I tried to retire. So to actually reach financial independence at 30 years old, I have to invest. Part 3. How I invest. Investing is arguably the most important thing you have to do if you want to retire early, but not for the reason that a lot of people think. Most people think of investing as a way to increase their wealth. Some even try to become rich just by gambling on the stock market. But that's not how I invest. To me, the investment returns I earn while I'm still working are just a cherry on top. They're nice to have, but given how unpredictable the stock market is, I'm not counting on anything specific. So the real reason investing is so important for early retirement isn't because it increases your wealth while you're working. It really matters because it maintains your wealth after you retire. If you just left your money in your bank account, you'd be spending down your nest egg, and inflation would make that money even less valuable. But by investing, your money will hopefully grow enough to offset your withdrawals, and has a better chance of keeping up with inflation. So investing is absolutely critical to not only building wealth, but enabling financial freedom. And historically, the stock market has returned around 6 to 7% per year, even after being adjusted for inflation. So as a super rough approximation, I'll assume that I save $6,125 per month for 8 years and earn a 6% return on my investment. That would give me $727,463.89 by the time I'm 30, split between personal investment accounts and retirement accounts. So the last question we have to answer is that enough? Part 4. What do you even need to retire? There are 3 things that impact whether you're financially independent or not. That's how much money you have, how much money you spend every year, and your expected investment return. And by the way, I am not a financial advisor, and you may want to consult a professional, but I'm just sharing my own approach. And right now, I have a super rough approximation of how much money I'll have, which was $727,000. And I also know that I spend about $20,000 per year, which is the second factor. So the question is whether $727,000 invested in the stock market can cover $20,000 in annual expenses. And the answer is yes, probably. The rule of thumb is that you need about 25 times your annual expenses to retire, which enables a 4% withdrawal rate. Now, there are a number of caveats, and I made a whole video where I explained the 4% rule in more detail. But as a super simple approximation, 25 times $20,000 is $500,000, which is how much money I would need to retire. And I'm absolutely on track to do that. In fact, I might even hit it a little faster if you hit the like and subscribe button. So to really put everything together and show why all of these factors are important, let's do a super simple thought experiment. Let's assume you have a take-home pay of $40,000, and let's assume you spend $35,000 of it. You'd be saving $5,000 per year, and using the 4% rule, you'd want $875,000 to retire. Even if you earned a 7% inflation-adjusted return on your investment, that would still take a little over 38 years. But if you only spend $20,000 per year, you'd be saving the remaining $20,000. And going by the 4% rule, you'd only need $500,000 to retire. If you earned the same return on your investment, that would only take 15 years. So it's this combination of earning as much as possible, spending as little as possible, and investing the difference that makes it possible to retire faster than 99% of people. But I don't just make videos to tell you about my financial status. The real point is, you can do the exact same thing. Only 1% of people plan to retire before they're 50 years old. But if you maximize your earning, minimize your expenses, and invest early and wisely, there's a very good chance that you could be part of the 1% too. That could mean decades of your life back, even if you don't have a super high-paying job. So if you want to retire early yourself, you absolutely have to watch this video next, where I explain the shockingly simple math that makes early retirement possible. Check that video out next, and I'll see you next time.